Welcome back to another episode of Dynamics Compass, where we interview the experts so you don't have to figure it out the hard way. Our expert today is Bill Wilson, a veteran in the food industry with 29 years of experience at his current company, Park 100 Foods. Starting as an Excel person and progressing through various cycles, Bill has been instrumental in major initiatives, including moving the company off of DOS to NAV and later to Business Central, the integration of Genesis Nutritional's program with NAV to ensure accurate nutritional values in recipes, and the automation of micro-testing processes for product quality control. He's also a highly active member of the Dynamics community and has served on the board for the past 4 years. Outside of work, Bill has been playing the guitar for over 50 years, mainly playing rhythm and acoustic guitar.
Mhm.
Thanks so much for joining, Bill.
Thank you for asking me.
You're welcome. So we are going to talk today specifically about the BC solution in the food industry. But
Mhm.
before we dive in, there were two things I wanted to ask. And the first one being just to break the ice. Um, what's something that not a lot of people know about you?
Well, I could tell you some things about, my favorite places to travel to, and I think my favorite and my wife's favorite place is Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Or I could tell you about a contest that I won for vocals, a 27-week contest that I won, and won a trip to New York City and got to be on the set of Good Morning America. But I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you a little story that happened a few months ago. And my mother had been doing really, really well. She was in a nursing facility and doing really, really well with her health. And then in January, she got COVID and then she got pneumonia twice. So her health went downhill very fast. So the day after Memorial Day, we had placed her in hospice care, and I got a phone call about 12:30. She was about 2 hours away from where we live at, and I got a call from them saying that my mother my mother was going downhill fast, and that if there's any way I should try to get down to see her that evening. So I finished up things here at work and headed down. And that evening, about 7:30, my sisters had been with her all day, and they had left. And My wife and I went to visit her, and she was unresponsive. But we could tell that her hours were basically numbered.
Hmm.
Um, and About 7:30, her pastor and her pastor's wife came in to visit. And while my wife stood at the end of the bed, she was showing pictures of my mother to the pastor's wife, and the pastor came over and um, gently took her hand. And my father passed away 4 years ago, and I had a little brother who passed away when he was 11. So um, he just told her, "It's if you're ready to go, to leave this earth, it's okay." And he said a little prayer for her, and all of a sudden, the TV turned on. Out of nowhere, the TV turned on and blasted at a volume of 48. And my wife turned around and looked, and she saw the 48 on the TV. And her phone, as she was showing pictures of my mother to the preacher's wife, phone locked up for about an hour after this happened. So I feel like we witnessed her spirit leave her body. And the one thing that kind of stays in my mind is my wife said, "What is the significance of the number 48?" And I said, "Well, I really didn't know." And my mother passed away the next morning. Um, her physical body passed away the next morning. And as we drove back home we'd already made arrangements for her funeral. As we were driving home, it hit me that my little brother would have been 48 years old this year. So a lot of little interesting things happened that evening, and I feel very blessed that I was allowed to witness it.
Yeah, that's. I don't believe in coincidence, and I do believe in the significance of the number that was there
I do too.
in the
I
in
do
the
too.
room. Um, and the way you're telling the story, it seems like you're very at peace,
I am at
even in the
peace.
moment.
I am at peace. I know that she's in a better place. She was her health was going downhill very fast, and we I think that she was ready to go see my father and my little brother, wherever that
Yeah,
may be. Right?
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. This is the deepest answer I've ever had to this question. Um, but yeah, I can understand that knowing that she's in a better place.
Mm-hmm.
That gives a lot of peace.
It
I
does.
I do know that a lot of people think like, oh, now I'm gonna have to miss this person for the rest of my time
Yes.
here.
Yes.
But if you know you're gonna spend eternity with them, then
See them again. See them again for
that's
sure.
a big comfort.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you. How do I move? How do I transition from this into Business Central?
Everyday
Um,
things, right?
yeah, but thank you for sharing. Um, all right, I will move to the topic. But I want to give people a bit more context for all the answers that you're going to give us today. Could
Mm-hmm.
you tell us a little bit more about Park 100 Foods, just for the audience to have that context?
Sure, sure. Perk 100 Foods started off as a meat supplying company, barbecues and various small little items that was created in the Park 100 district of Indianapolis. And after um, some success of selling some barbecues and things like that in the mid 70s, the two original owners decided that they wanted to make pork fritters and mushroom fritters or breaded mushrooms and breaded beef patties. And so they opened up, they bought a small facility in Tipton, Indiana, and they started making those items under the Mr. Fritter brand, which was a brand that was local to the Midwest.
Hmm.
And we then brought on aboard a certified chef from the Culinary Institute of Technology, and he was a his main job was creating desserts, but he also had a connection with Boston Market, the restaurant chain, and they needed somebody to help supply their sweet potatoes, spinach, baked beans, and some other pot pie filling, some of their other things. So he used his own money and bought a small kettle and put it into a facility in Morristown, Indiana, and we started making products for Boston Market. And when I started 29 years ago, Boston Market was 90% of our business. It's really a very, very small piece of our business now, and I'm not even sure there's very many Boston markets open today. But we we had done mostly just side dishes at that time, and then we went into soups and macaroni and cheeses, and now we're in one of the top suppliers with Farmer Stock. So we've gone a long way in 29 years.
Oh wow! So you went from meat to bread, breaded breaded food to side dishes to soups and now pet food as well.
As well, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Wow.
it's all human grade pet food, so it can run side by side with a chili that we might be making, running in one kettle. It's all human grade food.
All right. All right. So you've been exposed from the IT side, but you've been exposed to a lot of different food processing processes.
Processes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, we have, and
Okay.
I also have been a part of the. When I first started, they asked me to help them understand some graphing and their their yields that they were having each day. So that was my initial job with the company is to work with some Excel graphing and monitoring of yields. And so I've been in the shipping and receiving department. I've been in the sales department. For many years, I did the scheduling for uh, what right now is four different facilities, three in Indiana and one in Texas.
Yeah.
Um, and about 10 years ago, I my focus was 100% on the ERP system. So even though we started using Nav in 2003, I was doing all these other things too, besides wearing several different hats at the same time.
An IT
Um,
department didn't really exist yet.
no, it really didn't. It really didn't. But as you find out, we went from a DOS based program to Microsoft Nav to Business Central now.
Business Central. All right. Well, that gives great context on why you're the right person to speak on these topics.
Appreciate
Um,
that.
so I'll kick off with the first question. We obviously spoke before,
Mhm.
and you shared a few things already. With your extensive experience, what were the biggest challenges unique to the food and beverage industry during your ERP implementation, particularly when transitioning from DOS to Nav and from Nav to Business Central?
Well, the first thing was we wanted to make sure that the team knew that the look and the feel was going to be different. We set up several departments 6 months ahead of time to go before go live, and they ran the DOS program that we were using called Reflections and Nav side by side. It was extra work, but it certainly allowed us to test all the functionality. And we do have lots of customizations, which we'll discuss in a bit. But we needed to make sure that the paperwork and the recipes printed out properly and looked the same as it did with our old system. In the early days, we used to use handwritten recipes, and the line leads would make copies of those recipes to take to the kettle. So um, one day we had a formula that required 0.20 pounds of cayenne pepper. And since we were copying copies of copies, they were very old pieces of paper, and the recipe didn't show the decimal point. And so the staging team ended up batching out 20 pounds of cayenne pepper. So, to say the least, it was a hot mess.
Yeah.
Um, when we went to Business Central, our partner and myself used extensions to keep all those customizations intact.
Okay. Okay. Um, yeah, I can see what a difference that would have made. Just to be able to properly print a decimal, how that would impact
Absolutely,
the
and
output.
we did we did customize the reflections program. The Our partners at the time were out of Alabama, so I only got to meet them a couple of times when they came up to upgrade the our system from version 1 to version 2 or whatever. But we did ask them to make sure that our recipes were digitized in the system. So
Yeah.
we could get away from these handwritten. I still have books that have the handwritten recipes of some of the Long John Silver's um, green bean seasoning, for example, was one of them that we made. Or green beans, seasoned green beans. So was one of the Kenny Rogers used to have a string of restaurants, and we used to make some of their side dishes like green beans and collard greens and things like that too.
Yeah.
So I still have some
Don't
of the
throw
handwritten recipes.
yeah, don't throw those out. They might
No,
become
no, for sure.
collector's items.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, you made a reference to customizations earlier.
Mhm.
Um, Earlier you told me that you had about 800, 850 customization made to your dynamic system.
That's correct.
How how crucial were these customizations for Park 100 Foods, and what advice do you have for other food and beverages companies regarding customizations versus out of the box functionality?
Well, customizations in our eyes were crucial because we wanted to make sure we had all the checks and balances in place to monitor and verify our products. Um, we wanted things to still look similar to what they looked like, in the days of reflections, the days of DOS.
Hmm.
And so when those recipes went out to the team, um, we wanted them to look similar to what they did, in the old system. Um, we had to make sure that that kettle of Panera broccoli cheddar looks and tastes the same that it did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So we felt like the customizations that would help us make sure that the product gets the proper kettle tests, micro tests set up, and followed for each and every batch. From scheduling to procurement of raw materials to prepping, cooking, packaging, and shipping. From one end of the building to the other end of the building when the raw materials come in to when it goes out as a finished good. There are customizations in place allowing us to catch any issue before the product gets to final customer. Small independent companies can't afford recalls, and so the
Yeah.
few dollars that it costs in the beginning makes for a great investment in success of a company. Um, a
Yeah.
year ago, our company was purchased by OSI Industries. But prior to that, we were one of the most successful privately owned soup and side manufacturers in North America. And I feel the checks and balances that we put in place with customizations, and now what's in Business Central helped aid our success.
Yeah. Would you were you never concerned that you might go um what's the word I'm looking for? Like overdo it with the customizations that you start getting like, oh, let's
No,
just customize, keep customizing.
no, because the really interesting thing is when we first started with Nav, I was able to get on board with the developers, and they trained me how to write reports and pages. So when a plant superintendent came to me and said, "Hey, listen, I need a report to show me whatever that case may be," I could write those reports. So many of our customizations are just special reports that might be ran each day to show us a summary of what we're running for the week, or a breakdown of all the batches. Because since we have four facilities, we might run one of our products in three of those different facilities. And since the kettles are not the same in each facility, you need a
Hmm.
version, specific for each facility.
Yeah.
So, we try to, um, whether it's how we set up our raw materials, and which we'll discuss in a bit, or how we set up our finished goods. I don't feel like we've overindulged at all by doing the customizations. I'm sure there's many, many, many great things in out of the box, and had we not had the customizations, we would have found the right fits for things out of the box. And the only thing that I can say is it would have taken extra training. Um, there is some discussion that our parent company now uses a different ERP system, and there is some discussion that some years down the road that they will switch Park 100 over to this other system, but
Yeah.
that will require a lot of training and a lot of work, on our end to make sure that our people, um, because
Sure.
my understanding is their owners, the owners of our parent company, do not like customizations. So we will have to learn a lot of new things if they decide to do this.
Yeah. Do you think because you moved from Nav to Business Central as well, you think the customizations made that move more complex?
It it took a little bit longer because of the extensions that we had to write,
Hmm.
but I don't think it made it any more complex. I really don't. And over the last year, I've been working hand in hand with one of the developers at our with our partner, and he has been training me how to write more and more extensions as needed be. Because I feel like a report coming directly out of Nav or BC is much more easily accessible than a Power BI report or a JET report. I've got a lot of experience in writing jet reports, but maybe it's just a pride thing. But I really love to do the dev part of writing reports and pages and in right in the system.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say, do you like it more straight out of Business Central because those are the ones you developed?
Yeah, yeah. You know the interesting thing was when we first started with our first partner, um, the some of the customizations we did, they presented to Microsoft, and Microsoft input those into later versions of Nav and BC. So,
Yeah.
you feel like you really accomplished something if Microsoft liked what you did, and you know,
Yeah.
I mean it to make sure that our the routing of our paperwork, and it includes individual tags for each raw material, and sometimes piggyback tags that have to be put on to full bags of sugar or flour or whatever. And those tags get applied as the product goes into a kettle. So
Hmm.
if we look through, if we go back and reference a batch, and we find out that that salt tag is not on there, we might think, oh, maybe the salt didn't get into the product. So there are tests that we do during the processing time and the after process, after freeze process, that we can test for salt, pH,
Yeah.
viscosity, and things like that. But you know, we try to put all these checks and balances in place ahead of time to make sure that um, we don't miss a raw material into a kettle. If we want 50 batches of Panera chicken noodle today, we want to make sure that first batch and that last batch both, match as far as
Yeah.
taste wise.
Yeah. For sure. Um. All right. Next question. Park 100 Foods initially chose an on-premise solution for Dynamics due to security concerns, you told me.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, you wish you had transitioned to the cloud. Can you elaborate on the pros and cons you've experienced with on-premise and what factors should food and beverages companies consider when making this decision?
Well, I think that had we gone to the cloud, there's many things that pluses. Uh, those are easier access. The speed is would be much better.
Yeah.
We rely on SQL servers to make sure that we have the right speeds, and sometimes we get locked up just because of the hardware. But we could access Business Central from anywhere, whether we're on a computer or iPads or cell phones. We could access from anywhere if we were in the cloud. Can't do that with on-prem.
Yeah.
The updates are done automatically, and we don't have to have our partner go in and update every 3 or 6 months when Microsoft makes a change.
Hmm.
But we did find out that many of our customizations probably would not have worked in the cloud. So we're still happy that we did what we did and where we're at. I think it would take probably some minimal effort to move us forward if we wanted to go to the cloud, but we would lose some of those customizations. And even though Business Central offers great solutions out of the box,
Yeah.
we would have to do a lot of training and to make sure that we had the same monitoring and verifications in place.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Something else that you made a reference to earlier on this call already. You emphasized the importance of starting with raw materials and finished goods, using item cards as a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain why this foundational step is so critical for a successful Dynamics 365 implementation in the food and beverage industry?
Well, just imagine if you could go to one place and find out everything about a finished good or raw material, from the shelf life to the allergens to quantities on hand and where they're located. As far as, I mean, we have a couple of offsite facilities where we store raw materials and we store finished goods, plus the four facilities that we work out of. So we want to make sure that as we're procuring raw materials, we know where those raw materials are at
Hmm.
to be able to transfer them to the proper location. Um, some of the things that we wanted to have at our fingertips, as I said, was allergen monitoring. Um, our former CFO had a son who was very allergic to peanut butter, peanuts,
Mm. Yeah.
and or peanuts. Yeah. So one evening he was out with friends, and they were in a mall, and they stopped at a place to get a pretzel, and not knowing that that pretzel was cooked in peanut oil. And they tried numerous times to revive him with EpiPens, and he ended up passing away. So
Wow.
we know that the to make we want to make sure that first of all, when we receive a raw material, we know what allergens are in there, and we can post those in our warehouses. So if somebody is allergic to a seafood or a soy or a wheat, they can stay clear of this area in the facility.
Yeah.
And we also want to make sure that, by all means, that the finished goods have the right allergen warnings on them. Whether there's a soy or a peanut or you know any type of the nine allergens.
Yeah.
Um, we also want to make sure that there's vendor identification. How do we read a manufacturer dates on containers as they come into our facility, and how do we read vendor lot numbers? We want to set up viscosity and pH and salt on the that we want to monitor at the kettles, and we also when we do a batch of product, um, a production batch of product, there are CCPs, critical control points, in place during that whole process. And so during those processes, you want to make sure that you check your viscosity, the thickness of the product, and whether you need to add some flour or some starch to make it thicker, or some water to make it thinner, to make sure that product is the same as every batch.
Hmm.
We also set up micro tests, the tests that need to be ran when finished goods are produced. We send a bag out of every product to an offsite facility to test for micros. And um, maybe the farmer's dog product doesn't get all of the same micro testing that Panera chicken noodle might get. But we want to make sure that those things are marked on an item card, and then when we send out the Excel sheet that says these are the batches that you're going to get, these are the bags you're going to get, and these are the tests that we want on every bag.
Yeah.
Um, we show use by date calculations based on manufacturer suggestions, and we have those dates. 1 year, 2 year, 365 days, 60 days, whatever that the manufacturer's suggested dates are. But we also have a Park 100 um, use by date. And so if we get cinnamon in, for example, that the manufacturer says, hey, that cinnamon lasts 2 years, we may, knowing that we have culinary chefs that create the product, they may say that cinnamon starts to lose its efficiency after 6 months. The flavor loses, some of its intensity. So we put in an extra field that says Park 100 used by reference. So
Yeah.
it might be 180 days instead of 365.
Yeah.
Um, and those date calculations also, because on our item card we show them how to read the manufacturer's lot numbers and their dates. Those dates also print out on the allergen tags or the non-allergen tags if there's no allergen, that says used by June 22nd,
Yeah.
2026.
Yeah. I can see how this information is crucial, and hopefully every food and beverage company has something like this
Oh, sure.
in
Yeah,
place.
I hope so too. As I said, you don't want to have any kind of a recall. I will explain something that happened many, many years ago. It wasn't something that was our fault, but it could have meant the demise of Park Foods. We had we had decided to get pasta already cooked and frozen from a manufacturer, and in their process, they over over chlorinated the water that went into the pasta,
Hmm.
and we made macaroni and cheese for a customer. And when the product came out and was distributed, the chlorine taste was there. So we had to recall all that product and destroy it in a landfill with EPA watching us as we destroyed it because the product was, but it wasn't something that was our fault, you know, and we didn't do any testing on that pasta once it came to us. I mean, we expect to get certificates of analysis from each one of our suppliers, and there should have been something and maybe we did not have that that many years ago, 15 years ago, whatever it was. We may not have had that those certificates of analysis at the time.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully everyone is that stringent with their food processes.
Right, right.
Um, you also highlighted the critical role of accurate data and raw material management, especially when migrating from existing systems. What are the key data points and processes that food and beverages companies must prioritize to ensure data integrity during the implementation of ERP?
Um, you want to know so many things about a raw material. Where do I order them from? BC comes with, and NAV comes with, places for one or two different vendors, vendor number one, vendor number two. Um, in one of our customizations, we created up to six vendors. So we might buy sugar from Domino's and all these other places, and we know that there's our approved vendors. Not only do we have approved raw materials, but we also have approved vendors. But in also in that um, placement on our item cards, we have a vendor number one name. We have a place where we put the vendor's item number. Um, what is the lead time that it takes to buy that product? To make sure that when we're scheduling, we don't schedule something too early before we know that that product's going to be in. And we also have places where it shows how do I read that lot from Domino's? Where do I get that lot number? Because we record every lot number that goes into each one of our kettles on
Hmm.
our tags and the paperwork. Um, we also, as I mentioned before, we ask for certificates of analysis for all the incoming raw materials, and those CFAs go into a data storage add-on called Square Nine. And when those get put into Square Nine, the information comes back to our purchase orders. So when a purchase order is received, if that CFA is not in our system yet, a warning email goes out to the buyer, and it says, "Hey, listen, you need to get a certificate of analysis for this particular product, and we can get that before that product goes into production."
Okay. Okay. That's so many complexities, so many things I'm
Absolutely,
learning
absolutely,
learning today.
absolutely.
Um, different topic. EDI, you brought it up, is becoming increasingly crucial to customer demands for real-time information. How has EDI transformed your operations, and what advice do you have for companies looking to implement or improve their API capabilities within Dynamics?
Um, First of all, I'll say that Lanham EDI is built right into Business Central and Nav. So I would recommend that every food and beverage company familiarize themselves with the EDI processes available with Lanham.
Hmm.
Lanham offers week-long trainings. So whether you're e-shipping, via FedEx, small things, and this doesn't just mean food and beverage, but this is anything. Etsy, I'm sure they use, e-ship on many things that go through FedEx and UPS and USPS. Or if you use a full load, full truckloads, um, if EDI offers great tools, and this Lanham piece offers great tools. So many of our customers now want to know everything about their product. They want to know from when the raw material arrives, to inventory counts, sales order details. They want sales orders confirmed back to them. We get our sales orders in, and it automatically goes through EDI, and it prepares the sales order without us even having to prepare that. And many want to know shipment details. Several customers even want to know, batch order numbers and even the actual bag number that comes off of the packaging machine.
Yeah.
Where was it? Was it the first bag of the day? Was it the 100th bag? Was it the 300th bag of that batch? So they want to know what part of the process the bag comes from. And one thing that Chick-fil-A and the Farmer's Dog have put into place are barcoding that's called special barcoding called SSCC18, which is an ID that tells several things. It's not one of the QR codes that you might see on something that tells many, many things, but the barcoding of where was the product made and what's what location was it made at and what's the lot number on the product and certain things like that. So um, Nav and BC have capabilities to write these barcodes right out of the system. We don't have to. We just set that up. Um, you know,
With your eyes
based on
closed.
yes, exactly, and all that information can go into an EDI um, uh, receipt or sent list, and we can see those things right on the EDI.
You do make it sound very easy that way.
Well, I tell you, I did the training this year. Always before we've relied on our partners to make sure that we have the EDI capabilities, and they've put it in place. But one of the things that my boss wanted me to learn was some of the intricacies, which I think is fascinating. Intricacies of writing and reading that language from EDI, and um, you can take that EDI and customize it without doing a lot of dev work in the background. You
Yeah.
can customize that right in BC itself.
Yeah. Why did your boss want you to learn that?
Um, unfortunately, unfortunately, we've come across several EDI processors or technical processors that um, we have felt work on their own time and not our their time is the important part, not Park 100's time.
Okay.
And so as we find issues with, well, maybe this customer didn't get confirmation of an order, it's easier for me to go in and find out where are the errors at. And it's something that I wanted to learn for years, but we never thought it was something that was necessary. But over the last 8 to 10 months, we've decided that so many customers are asking for EDI mapping um, that must be something that we could do without having to pay large fees to our partner.
So now you're on call 24/7 because now you
I
have this
am a
knowledge.
lot. What the funny thing is that all of our transfer order, all of our when we finish loading a truck after with finished product, all of our transfer orders go to the offsite facility via EDI, and it seems like nothing bad happens during the day, but at 11 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock a.m. on Sunday morning, that transfer order didn't get processed EDI, and everybody's in the mode now of saying, "Oh, the truck's here, but the paperwork is not." He has a copy of the manual paperwork, but um, it's not physically in our system yet. And what? And unfortunately, our offsite facilities don't use Business Central; they use a different ERP system. So, we've had to make sure that the dialogue gets back and forth properly, and it's not that big of a deal as far as EDI is EDI, but
Yeah.
somebody may forget to hit that button to send EDI, or maybe it gets lost somewhere in cyberspace. You never know.
Everyone on night shift's got Bill Wilson on speed dial.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh wow. All right, last question. If you had to advise another food and bev company about moving to Dynamics 365, um, what would you advise them not to underestimate?
Don't underestimate the challenges you might have. Don't expect it's going to be easy and you can learn everything, all the functionality in a month. In a little over a week, in the middle of October, Microsoft Dynamics Community has their annual summit in Orlando, Florida this year. And I'll be presenting at a session called Upgrading. Don't put the car, not the cart, in front of the
Of
horse.
course, saw that.
Meaning, start slow. In that session, I will show what I have determined as the 5 T's in upgrading. And those 5 T's that I've come up with are team, train, test, trust, and thank. So, what you want to do, get with your team leaders as far out as 6 months in advance. Um, Ask your ERP partner to set up a sandbox with actual company data where the team can go in and regularly and they can play without any implications to your live data.
Hmm.
Um, so in the 5 T's, train those key users that you can allow uh, the, what you can and allow them to train you too. Some of the key team members love to explore, and they're going to invariably learn something that you don't know, and they can teach you.
Hmm.
So, um, you know, you want to test as much as you possibly can. You can never catch everything, especially if you're customized like we are. But it's something you only do once a year or once every 6 months. Maybe you'll forget that you did that, and when we go live, that's where you might catch an issue on some kind of customization,
Yeah.
um, and it might sneak up on you. But um, um, you want to trust your team because you've set them up as a key member, so you want to trust them. That's why they're there, and they know their daily duties more than you do in many cases.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was asked 20 some years ago was, um, we don't want you in the finance part of the system. We don't want you to dabble in those things because so I don't know everything about finance that I could know, just
Hmm.
because I was asked to stay away from there. I can answer some questions if it comes to setting up a general ledger and things like that, but as far as the intricacies, I don't know that much about. But and that's why we want to trust our team because they know their daily duties better than you do in some cases. Um, then you want to thank your team members for taking the time out of their day in making that upgrade smooth. You're certainly going to have that one person who won't test ahead of time. But as you trust and thank the other team members, you have 10 department leads that you've set up to play in the sandbox and learn Business Central or Nav, um, and that one of those 10 people didn't do anything, and here we are go live. Well, I can spend a lot of extra time with that one person because the other 9 people can help train their departments because they've already
Yeah.
gone in and practiced.
Yeah. I like how you've built in change management into your process because it's the one thing that whenever I hear about a failed implementation, most of the time it's regarding the users not knowing how to use the system or not
Right.
wanting to use the system because they've not been involved on the journey. And well, your 5 T's is like get them involved as early as 6 months before.
Yeah.
Let them know change is coming and bring them on the change so they can then train their team. And I think that's crucial
Well,
to success.
it's very interesting that many people don't like change.
Hmm.
But I would almost bet that in a year and a half, or almost a year and a half of being in Business Central, there's not a person that would even remember how to go into nav now. You know,
Mhm.
even remember what it looks like. And I guarantee you that if there were anybody left from 20, 22 years ago or before, they would not remember what that DOS program looked like. I don't remember what it looked like.
Yeah.
I do keep a copy of nav up because I like to reference, especially for the customizations or the names of tables, and it's easier for me to find a name of a table in the nav designer than in the BC designing world.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. All right. A lot of knowledge shared today. A lot of wisdom and a lot of tips. So I do hope anyone watching from the food and beverage industry that they're taking your advice on board, especially if they're still going on the journey. Then there's a lot of wisdom here. Can they? So you just in case anyone has more questions for you, I'm not the right person to ask because I'm not a subject matter expert. But if they want to find you, you're on LinkedIn. You go by Bill Wilson, or are
I
you
do. I go
William
under Bill
Wilson?
Wilson, Park 100 Foods, and they can reach me at bwilson at park100foods.com. Or can you reach out to you and then you can pass the information on
Pass
to
them
them.
on. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Bill. Really appreciate it. Also, the personal story at the start. Um, yeah, thank you for opening up. Not many people would do that, but thank you that you did. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for all your knowledge as well.
Thank you for inviting me and have a great day.
Yeah, you too, Bill. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this episode on the Dynamics Compass podcast. We decided to launch this podcast after having spoken to a lot of people in the community who seem to be looking for answers to the same questions. So then we decided, why don't we find experts in the market that have the answers, interview them, and then release that information for free to help everyone progress their Microsoft Dynamics journey. So we hope that you found this video very informative and helpful for you to continue your journey and keep moving forward. If you would like to hear about any other topics, please write to me on LinkedIn. Email me, Rory at thegoodtalent.co, and we'd be happy to have a look. We'll look for the experts that have the questions, have the answers. We'll interview them, and it will be freely available to you. Again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your support as well, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.